Hey everyone. So we are back to our perspective drawing. So I just wanted to go over what perspective was just one more time. So artistic perspective is when you are making a drawing look like it's going back into the distance. So you're creating depth. Okay, and this sometimes involves mathematics because you are measuring and using close observation. So you are looking at the picture and interpreting what you see onto paper, and it allows artists to trick the eye into seeing depth on a flat surface. Okay, and then we will be going over horizon line during the drawing and vanishing point, which our drawing, that is the point where our eye will lead back into the distance. Okay, so the materials that you're going to need are right here. So you're going to need paper, pencil, with an eraser would be great because we will have to do a little bit of erasing, a Sharpie, optional if you would like to outline. I think outlining makes your artwork look nice. I will be using a Sharpie so that you can see what I'm doing. A ruler, you don't have to use a ruler, you can just try to freehand the lines, and a pen if you want to outline smaller details. And then next week we're going to finish up our perspective drawing by coloring it. So you will have to think about gathering some coloring materials soon. Okay, here we go. So I would like to start by showing some examples of what our drawing is going to look like. So I started one here, haven't finished coloring it, but we are going to make a horizon line, a vanishing point. We're going to make our road look like it's going back into the distance. We are going to make some buildings and details in our background, and we're also going to add some details in our foreground. So the foreground is the thing that is the closest to us. The background is the things that are further away. So those things should be smaller than the things in the foreground. Okay, you have the option to make the sides here grass or water. So we'll have to remember that when we come to our drawing. Here's one that has grass in it. Here's one that has some water in it. Okay. All right. And then another one here. This one has some trees going to the distance and buildings. So we'll have a couple of options. And then next I wanted to show some student examples. So these are 3rd and 4th graders work. I really like this one. I think that the quality is really well done. I love the details that she put into the houses. I love the detail she even put into the sidewalk, into the sign, into her water. And she did a lot of really awesome coloring techniques, which I'll go over a little bit more when we do our coloring. But more detail for this drawing is going to be better. Here's another really nice one. I remember this student saying that she messed up with something up here in the sky, so she just kind of colored it to make it look like a smoky cloud. I thought that was a really good idea. So there's always ways you can fix artwork if it doesn't come out the way you want. And I like how she labeled things, like she put the name of our school. She named this one the bank. She made a little clock tower over here. She even put some house numbers to add some detail. And then she made her little sign here say welcome to New York, which I think is a really fun little way that you can personalize your piece. This one she put welcome to Delaware because I know I live in Delaware. All right, and then we've got another one here. I really like how this girl personalized her. She added the mall, and I know that that's the little Target symbol, so she must love shopping at Target. She put these little swirls in her sky to look like a Van Gogh picture. I thought that was creative, and she thought of that on her own. All right, back to what we were doing. Okay, Here were some other ones with some really nice, neat coloring, kind of similar pictures. And then this one I really like. I saved this one for last because it looks like they were trying to create a boardwalk. And they have a little palm tree here in the background. So all of these drawings are pretty well done, and you should have a similar outcome. So let's get started. Hopefully you had some time to gather your materials. And we are going to start off with our horizon line. Well, actually, I'm going to start with my name, Miss Hess. And I'm going to start with my horizon line. You can use a pencil for this. I'm sorry, a ruler for this, or you can just freehand it with pencil. I am going to do pencil. So you're going to want that line somewhere in the middle. It does not have to be perfect, so if you don't have a ruler and you just can freehand it, that's fine too. I don't know how well you can see that. Okay, so it is pretty visible. Next thing, we're going to start with our vanishing point. So the vanishing point is a single dot. So I'm just going to make a little dot. I don't want it to be too noticeable because I don't want it to stand out too much. I just want it to help me out. It gives my eye like a place to see the dot where I'm going to be making the lines to. Okay, so next we're going to start with our orthogonal lines, and those are the lines that converge into the vanishing point. So the first lines I'm going to do are going to be the lines for the road. Okay, and I'll just keep referring to some of my drawing examples here just so you can kind of have a little preview of what I'm going to draw next. Okay, let's see. Okay. So here I'm going to make the lines come to the vanishing point. If you need to make a little mark here and here to help you see this line from this line, go ahead and do that. So I'm going to, it helps me when I keep my eye on the vanishing point. So I'm drawing, but I'm actually looking here. Same thing on this side. I'm drawing, but I'm keeping my eye on the vanishing point. So you should have a really big triangle. Okay, we're not done yet. Next, we're going to add some lines for the sidewalk. So right next to this line for the road, we're going to make a line for the sidewalk. So it starts out small and it gets a little bit bigger as we come down to the bottom of the paper. Okay, that is perspective. The drawing is going to appear bigger at the bottom of the paper and smaller in the middle of the paper. So same thing on both sides. Give you a little bit of time to catch up. Okay, now next we're going to create lines for the sidewalk. Now these lines should be parallel to the horizon line. Now a lot of times kids mess this up because they're not doing it correctly. They do the lines like this. Just do a quick little rough draft here. A lot of times when I teach, kids end up doing this and they just follow, they make the line parallel like a ladder this way. It's not supposed to be like that. And also, make sure you're not doing this kind of a thing. That's going to make your drawing look sloppy. The line should follow the parallel lines of the horizon line. It is hard to do, so if you want to put a ruler here to make sure you're not tilting the line too much. It's tricky because your eye naturally wants to make them straight across on these two lines, but you're actually trying to follow the line of the horizon line. That's going to make it look more realistic. And notice how I started these out small and then I made the gap a little bit wider each time as I went down to the end of the paper, the bottom of the paper. Okay, next thing, we're going to make lines for the road. Now notice how this box is smaller than this box. That's going to trick the viewer into their eyes seeing the road as smaller as it goes back into the distance. That's just a little perspective trick. Okay, also if we were really to be particular with it and draw our imaginary orthogonal lines, we're going to want to keep our little dotted lines in this parameter. I don't usually teach it that way because that kind of confuses kids measuring. This part is really good to do just kind of like freehanding it. So I always tell my kids to just start off with a dotted line. Make the dotted line look a little bit longer as you come down to the bottom of the page. And then simply just make that into a rectangle. See how the rectangle is getting a little bit bigger as we go to the bottom. Okay, you might have to pause this video and kind of fix that up a little bit. That's fine. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. All right, next thing, we're going to stick with making this side grass and this side water. So let's make some little details in our foreground to make our picture look a little bit more interesting. So one of the things that I thought of is drawing a sign. That's just a rectangle. It's super easy to draw. If you have really strong drawing skills and you want to draw something more realistic like a dog or a bench, that's up to you. I'm going to stick with some basic shapes because that's way easier for me to draw. So I'm going to make a really big rectangle in this area. Make sure you make it big enough so you can put the text into it. So many times I see my kids wanting to restart because they make this little teeny tiny rectangle, and then when I go to write in it, I can't fit any words in there. Okay, so let's maybe do this part with pencil, and then when you have what you like, you can sketch it over top with Sharpie. Okay, now for my beginners out there, just doing a simple rectangle with a little post is fine. For my more advanced drawers, if we're following the orthogonal lines, those will connect to the vanishing point. So if I had a line here and a line, see how my vanishing point is going towards the... So see how I tried to make my sign on the angle of the orthogonal line. I know it seems like a lot, but all the lines should connect to the vanishing point. Okay, so I'm going to map this out. But just doing a regular rectangle is totally fine. Still look like a sign. So same thing, I could make this a house, I could make this a sign, but if you see this, it follows the lines of the perspective. If I wanted to, and I'm not going to do this, but if I follow more orthogonal lines, I'm just going to draw them out so you can see what these really are when I go into explaining them. So I'm always going to keep the tip of my ruler on the vanishing point. That seems to help kids out a little bit. And I'm going to draw some orthogonal lines, but I'm always going to keep the ruler on the vanishing point. I'm going to erase these later. Just wanted to show you what these are. So let's say if I wanted to make this building taller, okay, they're really hard to see, but if I wanted to make, let's say I wanted to make this sign into a 2-story building, the top of the building would actually be one of these lines. So if I sketched all of this out, that would be the height of my building. I know that's a little bit more advanced for 3rd and 4th, so I'm going to stick with a sign. But you could turn this into a building. Then you could even come into making another building here. See how that building got smaller? And then making another building here. See how those buildings got smaller? 1, 2, 3. All following the orthogonal lines. Okay. I'm going to erase that part just for the sake of me doing an elementary school drawing, but I'm sure that some of you 4th graders could handle that. Just remember, when you're drawing those orthogonal lines, you need to keep the ruler, let me get this smaller ruler, you need to keep the tip of the ruler on the vanishing point at all times. See how when my pink ruler is coming over, it's following those orthogonal lines. Same thing if I wanted to sketch in a door. The door would have to be, the top of the doorway would have to touch here. Same thing if I wanted to draft some windows. The windows would have to follow the lines. That is true perspective. I know they look skewed, but that's how they're supposed to look if you were doing a 1-point perspective drawing. Okay, I'm going to erase this because we're going to come back to our sign. If some of you 4th graders want to try this out, I would be so impressed. And there are so many more videos on YouTube, online, about 1-point perspective. And make sure you're clicking on 1-point perspective because 2-point perspective is when you have 2 vanishing points in a paper. So I don't want to confuse you on that, but make sure if you're trying to research this 1-point perspective a little bit more, you do that. All right, we're going to go back to our more basic drawing. We're going to go back to our sign. Okay. Please do not get frustrated. If you need to just pause and start back over, that's okay. The way I got good at drawing is because I practiced a lot and I taught myself and I had lots of art books, and it did come along with some frustration. But it's just like learning how to play basketball or learning how to dribble a basketball. You have to do it a lot of times in order to get good at it. Okay, back to my basic drawing. I was just putting in a sign. I'm going to make the little sign post. I'm going to make some little lines for grass to create some texture. And I am going to put some kind of text in there. So since I live in Newark, I'm going to write Newark. All right, welcome to Newark. Let's see if I can do my writing in perspective. So this end would be bigger and it gets smaller as we go into the distance. Very good. And if you would like to make a little shadow to make your sign look a little bit more real, you're just going to shadow this side, shadow the bottom, shadow the side of the post, and there you have a little bit of a 3D sign. Okay, I really like the turnout. Let's come over here to the water side. I am going, you know, if you are a strong drawer, you could go crazy with this side. In previous examples I have, if we were in the classroom, we would have totally had some of these coloring sheets available. I will put these up so you can see them on the Google Classroom. This one I created a boardwalk coloring sheet. It has a little steamboat in there. This one I created a little pirate ship. And on this side is the ground and some buried treasure. This sign just says beach on it. Here's just a standard city. And here's one that shows perspective, and I added a fence, and I added some telephone poles and wire. So the one here is the biggest, and it gets smaller as it goes into the distance. It's showing perspective. Okay, hopefully I gave you guys some ideas. All right, let's go into this side. I'm just going to do something really standard like this drawing. I'll add some little fins and a boat. That should be pretty easy. I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to make a triangle for the sail. If you want to sketch this in pencil beforehand, that would be a good idea. I'm going to make a line that comes down, and then just a little half circle shape for the bottom of the boat. And I added some little dots to make it look like that was the underneath part where people could be. And then just like I created texture over here with the lines, I'm going to create some texture over here with some movement of water. You want this to look kind of subtle. And again, you want this to follow the angle of the horizon line. And again, I'm going to add a little fish tail or mermaid tail just to make my drawing fun. Okay. For my fourth graders, I was thinking doing some kind of fence along the side would be kind of interesting. You don't have to do it, but I can show you how on one of these examples. So if you wanted to create a fence, because we wouldn't want anyone falling in our water, I would teach this in my when I used to teach middle school. I showed them, you were going to see this, how this would look like an L shape. You would make a fence post that is straight up and down. This is kind of hard for elementary schoolers to master because sometimes they end up making it like this, because naturally we just want to, you know, stick on the side there, and it looks like it's straight when we're looking at this line, but really you want that line to be at a 90-degree angle. Oh, and I should be making these a little bit bigger as I go into the distance. Or I'm sorry, as I go into the foreground. And then simply you would just connect the fence post with your two. And there you have a little fence. All right. That might be a really cool feature for the side if you're a fourth grader. Okay, now let's think of some fun buildings, trees, flags, shops to add to our background to make it fun and interesting and to make it your own. So just like I showed in the student examples, they didn't just copy me, they came up with some of their own things. They came up with some of their own, like this one says Chinese food, Charter School of Newcastle, Ocean Shop. So it doesn't have to make sense, even though we know that we don't have an ocean shop right next to our school. This is a drawing that you create And that's like one of my most favorite parts about artwork. You can make things up. It can be your own little world. Okay. We have thicker buildings, taller, skinnier buildings. Okay, so make sure you're thinking about different sizes. I love this one. This one has a little balcony on the side. Okay. I am going to start by filling in my horizon line because I didn't do that earlier. If you wanted to make some kind of tree here, that's why I didn't totally fill in the horizon line if you wanted to make it touching the grass. Okay. Maybe I'll just add one. I'll add one here. Just kind of like. I'm gonna make it look a little bit more like some bark on there. And then I'm going to try to make my branches look real. I would recommend this for the 4th graders. So I always show these little Y trees. So you're just gonna make little Ys coming off of your branches. Like a little critter living in there or something. We'll pretend that. Okay. I'll just close these off. Again, don't stress about doing this part, but if a 4th grader would like some more of a challenge, and then I'm going to fill in the puffy part of the tree all the way up into this, the rest of this. A lot of times when I teach this, kids make the tree look really awesome and the branches look really awesome. Let's just say I did that good, even though it is a little messed up looking. And then they end up doing this kind of a thing. And they make the tree top not full enough. Okay, I know that it might just seem this is the right way, but you want to make the tree look more full. And again, I'm just going to add some little textural lines to indicate that there's a lot of foliage going on. Again, like when you're trying to do a realistic drawing, it would be silly for us to draw every single little individual leaf of the tree. That would take hours, and it would actually kind of look a little bit strange, because when our eye is focusing on something outside, we're looking at the whole thing. We're not just looking up close at one little leaf in a tree. So we're trying to create the illusion of a tree with a lot of foliage on it. Okay. And I just must have got a little dot of something on here, so I'm just gonna make it look like I didn't do that. It's a mess up. All right, now I'm going to put in my horizon line, the rest of it. See how I left a space for that part? Okay. Now let's do some fun buildings. So this building over here is actually going to be hidden because my tree is in the way. Just going to, if my tree wasn't in the way, I would make it look something like this. All right, I'm going to add a door and just some little details around it. Oh, this is where I always like to, if you're a 4th grader or a 3rd grader and you want some more detail and you want to really go crazy with this, this is where you might want to switch to either doing a pen or a smaller Sharpie. So windows always have a thing of molding around it. If you look at your window or door, it has like a frame of white or tan or whatever color molding around it. That's going to give your house a little bit more detail, but again, like realistic drawing comes down to how much effort you want to put into it. You know, I have kids all the time that just want to like sit in their seat and just kind of finish the sketch quickly and just go on to coloring all within the same class. which is fine. But it is kind of like, you know, I know people kind of get bored of their drawings, but if you really put a lot of like pride and effort into your artwork, you're going to be a lot happier with it. I always remember one of my college professors saying that I was a person that is not afraid to put the necessary details into a picture. And I'm so happy that he noticed that about me and said that to me, because I'm not. I will like to take hours just putting that in. Or maybe I'd like to take even a couple more minutes to put on the siding of the house, which is just some straight lines. You know, those are some choices that I'm choosing to make. Again, you do not have to do this. This is getting kind of complicated, but that's okay. Because I take pride in my artwork. I want it to turn out really good. I want to look like the most advanced drawing that I've done yet. All right, and then maybe I'll even put a little welcome mat right here. And maybe even a little street light of some kind. And maybe even a little mailbox here. If we had a really big piece of paper, we could just fit so much stuff in here, but for the sake of our drawing, we're not gonna be able to fit a whole lot. All right, I am loving how this looks so far, and I'm going to come across this way, just doing all different type of buildings. And the focal point, I'm definitely going to make CSNC, our school. All right, so I'm going to add a square. I am going to add, even though our sign doesn't have this, I'm going to just make a big rectangle on top to show the name of my school. So I'm just like, this is giving the viewer a clue as to what they're looking at. So I'm going to write CSNC in there. Charter School of Newcastle. All right, and then our school has 2 double doors, which are always open and very inviting. And we have a ton of windows on the front. We have even more windows like this up top. I'm going to actually make this in some darker lines just to add more interest. These are windows, by the way. And then one cool thing about our school is that we have a really tall flag post. So I'm going to attempt to draw that in, and I'm just going to make it really tall so I can make it waving, kind of like this one. So I'm going to make it really, really tall, even though it's not like that in real life. It's probably only about up to here, up to the top of the building. But for drawing purposes, I'm not going to be able to draw the details of the flag if I don't make it big. So let's do that. I'm going to make some wavy lines to make my flag look like it's waving. If that's a little bit too difficult, sure here. If that's too difficult, you could just also do a simple rectangle. And then this is going to be the blue part of our flag. And in case you didn't know this, our flag has 13 stripes, but no one's going to notice if you don't do all 13. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I only fit 10 on there, but no one's gonna know. Maybe I'll put some dots in here to look like the stars. All right, I love how my school turned out. I'm going to make a little house or shop right here. And you can make this whatever you want. Sometimes kids make it a little pizza shop. Sometimes kids make it a house or an apartment. I'm just gonna do a, what do I wanna do here? It's just like it's a two-story, you know, condo. And it's got some doors. And on the top, this is where someone lives. And they have the little stairwell right here. And a little deck. And on the bottom here is actually a pizza shop. So I'm just going to make it look like a pizza. Obviously, when I color it in, it's going to look way better. But this is the pizza shop. That's the big pizza window with the open sign in it. Maybe I'll give my rooftop some detail. Sorry if I'm going a little too fast. Okay, still have lots more to go. So over here, we're gonna put another building. I'll make this one like a medium height. I'm going to make this just the apartment building with all of our little floors. These are their balconies. And we've got our little doorway, and the rest of the building would just have windows. And then we will make just a taller building here. This will be the one with the clock in it, telling time. Okay. I just kind of feel like I want something else up here, so I'm just going to add like another little house part up here. Little chimney right here. And I think that looks pretty good. Let me add some molding around my apartment style drawing. We're going to add a little stop sign here. And for those students, just you could make it a circle, would be fine. Color it red. Okay. And I will need some windows. Maybe we'll do those little shingles out here. And a big door. Very good. And then we'll have one little building just coming off of that one. I'll have it look like that. someone's door here. All right. I'm pretty happy with that. And if you want to put a sun or a moon, I think it looks a little bit kiddish, like very, I don't know whoever, it doesn't make the drawing look very real when people always do this little corner, sun or moon. And also doing this kind of a thing I think looks a little fake. I try to hinder my kids from doing suns like this. I think that looks a little bit weird and not natural. I think a sun looks perfectly fine just making a circle, and a moon looks perfectly fine making a circle or a crescent, and make it anywhere, any size. I'm gonna do mine right here and color that yellow, or if I want to make it nighttime I could do that too. Alright, I'm pretty happy with this. I don't know if you guys know how to do those little V-shaped birds, but I'm going to add a few of them. And if you're good at drawing planes, airplanes, I think in a couple of these I showed kids how to do them in my example. Actually, I have one here. I'm going to attempt to draw this little guy. Kind of had a little mess up, so I went back into it and kind of fixed it up. And then I'm just going to have a little banner that says something. Okay. For week 2, I'll be going over some coloring tips, so stay tuned.